podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How We're the Podcast from Roker Report. And today we have something a little bit different. Today we've decided to shamelessly steal the Match of the Day top 10 format and apply a Sunderland twist to it. So today we're going to be ordering the top 10 Sunderland managers of this century. Luckily, and to help me, I have three gentlemen who are chomping at the bit to put their heads on the blocks and be forever ridiculed all over the socials and all over the world for their selections. And I've already been winding them up because they don't know what the others have selected. So they're waiting with bated breath to find that out. So first up, we have such a positive fella that I'm sure that he has 10 number one picks today. It is, of course, Gavin Henderson. All right, Gav?
I am, and I knew. How did I know you were going to come to me there? I got painted as like Mr. Happy Me. I'm not always happy, you know.
Well, I haven't listened to it yet. We've just been talking about it. But the Sunderland pod, we've got Andrew with us in a minute who I'll come on to. But apparently you said all of that was very positive about the city of Sunderland, which is great to hear.
It was indeed. It's always nice to talk about not just the football club, but the city. I'm a big proponent for Sunderland. Only live a couple of miles away, spend all my money in Sunderland, avoid the Tyne if I can, and I don't spend too much money over that way because I'm just such a big fan of Sunderland. So, you know, yeah, absolutely great. And if people haven't heard it, we had Councillor Kevin Johnson on with us just talking about the city regeneration plan, all the different things which are kicking off at the minute, the 10-year plan going into the future and what the city's going to look like, and hopefully growing at the same rate as the football club, everything marrying up lovely and going hand in hand.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing that. When you say spend on your money, you mean basically keeping all the pubs in Sunderland in business.
Well, yeah, that's it. And doing me shopping in Jackie White's and
Greg's
traditional stuff. And Greg's, yeah.
No,
Greg's maybe less. So I don't mind one if I'm in Asda, like, but I can't get over the fact that's a Geordie brand, really, isn't it? Greg's. I'm more into like Milligan's, if I'm honest, or Muller.
Shopping at the posh end of the for sausage roll. But no, I'm going to look forward to listening to that because also joining us is a recognisable voice from our On This Week series. He's also been involved in a number of books written about Sunderland AFC, so I'm expecting his choices to come with some historical context. I'm pleased to say we have Andrew Smithson with us. All right, Andrew?
Hello, mate. Yes. Yeah, my top 10 is the official top 10, I think you'll find, lads. Mine comes with a seal of approval, so there'll be no arguments, I don't think.
I mean, just quickly, just in terms of today's task, I mean, did you find it fun, or was it, kind of almost like therapy, or was it just utterly depressing looking back at it?
I struggle with all of this. I think we've said before, sometimes asking to pick your favourite Sunderland moment or Sunderland memories is actually quite tough. So, no, Chris, you were very clever. You got me to agree to doing the pod before telling me what I'd actually be doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, had I known, I might have said I was unavailable.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting into your picks in that case then. And our final member for today is someone, actually, us at How We the Podcast and Roker Report, we're expecting a Joe Bellingham-style offer to trigger release clause, so he goes on to bigger things. It is, of course, Johnny Hawley. All right, Johnny?
Hi, morning, mate. I wondered how long it would take to get another one of them in, so I think you made it about 1.5 seconds after starting the sentence, so that's good going, mate. Well done.
I can't help myself, really. It's just, I've got to get some enjoyment out of the day, mate.
Well, after the stress you had before we started recording, I think I'll let you have one or two today, like.
Yes, I'll just say kids and kids, really. I mean, that's I'm just going to leave it there, really. But getting away from that, this is because this is hopefully the start of a little series, but how kind of tough did you find it? And just actually building off Andrew's point, was there a tough one between looking at, the manager's record and actually just how much you loved them?
Oh, massively so. I think it was really hard because obviously we've had managers now over the past decade, especially, we've bounced between divisions. So how do you compare a manager who was in League One versus somebody who's in the Premier League versus the Championship? And and all that. So that's already tough. And then, like you say, on top of it, there's some of them who I look at and I just think like, oh, I just love you. And some who I look at and think, I just can't stand you, son. So then trying to work through them biases as well, like it was surprisingly tough for whack together a top 10 list of managers for a podcast that you do for fun, actually. Yeah. So you've given us a tricky one.
Yeah, that's it. And going off your choices, I can see you had trouble, mate. We'll get into that. Well, okay, look, let's crack on. As I said, we are shamelessly stealing the BBC Match of the Day top 10 format. That went on for so long. Might still be going on, actually. I haven't got a clue, although Gary Lineker's been sacked. So he might be going off on his own to do this. So if anyone's kind of not familiar, we pick a subject to rank, which in this case is the top 10 Sunderland AFC managers of this century. So we first had to shorten the list down to 10 from the 22 permanent managers we've had since 2000. So we've discounted caretaker managers. And it's our job to try and put those 10 into some sort of order from best to worst. Why from 2000, you might ask? Well, even though it makes me sick that we have some young lads at Roker Report, it does make it more effective if the lads actually experience the reins of the men we're discussing, and it also keeps things simple. So there we are, even though I am gutted to miss the likes of Dennis Smith off, but we really need to, we need to cater for the young'uns, really, don't they? You know, I suppose, Johnny, I'm looking at you. Mate, I knew. I can see you smiling.
In fairness, if you'd gone back literally any further, I'd have been chucking guesses in left, right, and centre. So
well, I
got it right.
I did think you might be kind of, the early part of Peter Reid, but anyway, we did get it down to our top 10, and the top 10 that have been selected for us to discuss to order, and this is in alphabetical order. We've got Alex Neil, Gus Poyet, Lee Johnson, Mick McCarthy, Peter Reid, Regis Labrie, Roy Keane, Sam Allardyce, Steve Bruce, and Tony Mowbray. So that means there's 12 that have missed out on our shortlist to rank. So I'm going to do this in chronological order, and there's some absolute dross in here, as you'll hear when I go through. We've got Howard Wilkinson, Niall Quinn, Ricky Sprazier, Martin O'Neill, Paolo Di Canio, Dick Advocat, David Moyes, Simon Grayson, Chris Coleman, Jack Ross, Phil Parkinson, and Michael Beale. So that's that's an awful list, isn't it? I mean, that'll give you enough to give you nightmares, isn't it? Some of that 12. So, but I mean, Gav, I'll start for you. I mean, just on that top 10. I mean, we did go backwards and forwards on a couple, and I mean, one of the names in particular that I kind of went backwards and forwards with a little bit was Jack Ross, because he's a bit of a confuser, really. Because if you listed all of and I have done this, if you listed all of the 22 managers, he'd actually be third on that list in terms of percentage of games he won as Sunderland manager. Well, by my reckon anyway, but anyway, he's high up. And when you consider the situation he took over, do you think history's going to be not quite as harsh on Jack Ross as maybe we are now?
I just associate them with draws in the third tier. I don't associate them with any sort of success. He chucked away automatic promotion. We lost in the final of the playoffs. We lost in the final of the Checker Trade. I mean, I had a high win percentage, but he had a high draw percentage. Well, 27 draws from 75 games. I mean, yeah, maybe he did take over in a naff situation, but he also took over the biggest club that's ever been in the third tier, in my opinion, with some players on the books which played Premier League football and failed to win anything. So he wouldn't be anywhere near my top 10. He'd probably be somewhere near the bottom of the list, actually, of all, what is it, 22 managers? I wasn't a big fan of Jack Ross in the end. I think his football was poor and, failed ultimately, which is why it'll just be a footnote. It'll just be forever a reminder of a team that failed, really.
Okay, interesting. I mean, Andrew, for you, I mean, obviously that conversation about Jack Ross, but we also left off the likes of Martin O'Neill. I mean, do you think anyone was unlucky not to make our top 10, or do you reckon we had it about right?
It's about right. I mean, I can think of a couple who were lucky to make the top 10, but I think the ones who missed out were fair enough. Like Gav says, Jack Ross was a bit of a nearly man for me. He came in a bad situation, got a team together, but there was a time when really we looked nailed on for automatic promotion. Never mind losing in the playoff finals, he kind of blew that. So yeah, I think for most of the ones who don't make the top 10, Chris, I don't think there's any arguments.
Okay, fair enough.
Unless somebody's now going to throw in a name that I've forgotten about.
Well, I mean, I will go on to you, Johnny. I mean, like you said, that list of names were left off. Like you said, Martin O'Neill, Ricky Sprazier kept us up. You could argue Dick Advocat kept us up originally. I mean, what did you think of our top 10 in the end?
I think it's pretty much spot on, really. I think the only one who I'd have considered seriously putting in would be O'Neill. And I think he suffers for the fact that obviously he started really well but tailed off badly towards the end when he did end up losing his job. And that FA Cup quarter-final against Everton, went to a replay, came back to the Stadium of Light, limp 2-0 defeat. If we win that and we go to Wembley, even though it's only the semis, I think he gets a massive boost up the rankings for people. But, you can't judge on what ifs and what might have been. So he didn't do it. So he's not in the top 10. So let's forget about him and move on.
Okay, interesting. So if anyone does disagree with our top 10, I'm sure you'll get in touch, but give us a shout. So just a reminder, our top 10 in alphabetical order, just in case you're following along to try and see if you agree with the lads, which I guarantee you won't. It's Alex Neil, Gus Poyet, Lee Johnson, Mick McCarthy, Peter Reid, Regis Labrie, Roy Keane, Sam Allardyce, Steve Bruce, and Tony Mowbray. So let's get into our top 10s, and we're going to start with you, Andrew. I mean, could you please give us your countdown from 10 up to 6, please?
Yeah, it's a bit like Top of the Pops, this, which
it is, isn't it?
Might be another reference Johnny struggles with. Yeah, we've gone 10, or I've gone, 10, Steve Bruce, 9, Sam Allardyce, 8 was Tony Mowbray, 7, I had Gus Poyet, and for 6, I went with Alex Neil.
Oh, we've gone in very different directions for this list.
Okay.
Whoa! Yeah, I don't think we had a single name in common in that order.
Dear.
It's already begun. And if that Top of the Pops reference kind of makes me the Jimmy Savile equivalent, we're going to have issues, Johnny, with you.
Here comes that cancellation, lads. It's now.
That's it. So, Andrew, let's get into it quickly. You've got Steve Bruce rock bottom. And actually, to be fair, I mean, the lads will come onto it, but they have Steve Bruce in their bottom 3. So on paper, you have a manager who had a couple of mid-table finishes in the Premier League behind the likes of Sam Allardyce and Gus Poyet, who, in theory, just kept us up. So what puts him behind the likes of those two for you?
Well, as Johnny mentioned earlier, it's sometimes it's just about feeling rather than stats and what they did and didn't do. I will give Steve Bruce credit. We spoke recently, Chris. I'm pretty sure he was our last manager to do more than 2 full seasons, which, is an achievement. The reason I didn't rank him as high as some of the others was I just look at the resources he had. He came into a club which had established itself in the top flight. There was a bit of money floating around, and I don't know if he did enough to kick us on. But he's bottom of the top 10. He's not bottom of all of the managers. I'm not saying he was shocking.
Oh no, there's no caveats here. He's bottom of your list, Andrew, and I want to know why.
Every single one of these has got some sort of caveat. You've got me worried about all this social media backlash. Every single name I'm going to mention, I'm going to cover myself. So no, he did do some good things. I know he joked. We joke about it a lot. He did give us a top half finish, which is very rare.
Well, 10th and 13th, Andrew, because obviously Peter Reid gets plaudits for 2 7th place finishes, yet with Steve Bruce 10th and 13th, is the argument that you thought he should have done maybe what Peter Reid did and finish in the top 6 or 7 with that squad?
I don't think it was unreasonable. I think particularly in the cups, Steve Bruce had a bit of a shocking record. So yeah, he wasn't bad. I think you're dead right. I had higher hopes for Bruce.
Okay, interesting. So the Allardyce and Poyet thing, you said they maybe kind of slightly overachieved, whereas Bruce underachieved. Is that the argument?
Oh, I didn't know I was getting such a forensic go. I'm getting hauled over the coals.
We've started now. We're into it now.
I think those others either gave us some better one-off memories or dealt with better situations. Oh dear me, is that enough? Do I need to run this past a lawyer before I say anything?
We'll get into Gav. So Gav, can you give us your rundown from 10 up to 6, please?
So at number 10, I've got Lee Johnson. Number 9, I've got Steve Bruce. Number 8, we've got Tony Mowbray. Number 7, I've got Alex Neil. And at number 6, I have Sam Allardyce.
Yeah. So, that's it. Sam Allardyce in 6th. Someone who actually only in charge for, I think it was 30-odd games, and you've got him above the likes of Alex Neil, who also, I think he was in charge for 20-odd games, but he finished the job and got us out of League One. You've also got him above Tony Mowbray, who, not only steadied the ship after taking over, after we'd just come up, but then took us to the playoffs after we'd just come up. So, I mean, just about this Allardyce one, are we getting back to that conversation about this being maybe the whole package when it comes to a manager and not just what they achieved?
When you consider where Allardyce took us from, which wasn't a great position, and he had money to spend in the January and he brought in players who he thought could really improve the spine of the team, I think he did a fantastic job. And there's a reason why even now, when we sack a manager, people go, get Allardyce back for a bit, even though it was years ago now, you know what I mean? But it wasn't just the fact that we stayed up. And it's a sad fact of what happened. I think we would have been a better team had Sam Allardyce stuck about. I mean, he did that good a job that he got the England job off the back of it, which just beat Newcastle, managed to relegate them in the process by beating Everton 3-0 at the Stadium of Light. When you package it all together, it was a pretty fun time to be a Sunderland fan when Sam Allardyce was here.
Well, because remember, he had an awful run to start with, though.
He did, no doubt about it. But he, again, like I said, he took over a team which, for all intents and purposes, for me, was going down. I think it was a complete mentality change. And when you hear some of the players talk who played for Allardyce in that period, they talk about the way he came in and he focused heavily on getting the squad together, took them away on trips to Dubai and things like that, which might seem a bit fanciful, but it really helped work on the core relationship of the group, brought in quality players, where Ellis Short had, at that point, really started to get a little bit sick of putting his hand in his pocket. Allardyce, even now, still credits Short and says, I can't fault the bloke, because he gave us money to spend on players, and he brought in Wabi Kazri, Jan Kirchhoff, Lamine Kone, and to a lesser extent, Darmy and Doy, who people don't really talk about, but we needed somebody who was just a bit of a unit up front and could hold the ball up. And that allowed Jermaine Defoe to focus on scoring goals. I think Sam Allardyce, when you think before Allardyce come in, we had Defoe playing on the bloody left wing under Advocat. So I think Allardyce had a tough job on, and he steadied the ship. And it was at that point really where he managed to establish himself as one of the best firefighters in football who could keep teams up. And just a shame that he never got to do it more with us. But Yeah.
Well, again, going back to the kind of Steve Bruce conversation a little bit, because you've got Sam Allardyce in 6th, who actually had, if you go by win percentage, he's got the lowest win percentage on there. And as we said, there's that Steve Bruce element where he did have 2 mid-table finishes in the Premier League, which isn't something that comes along too often for Sunderland.
Yeah, but I agree with what Andrew said. He had a lot of money to spend, and I think this was talked about on the pod we did recently, where we chatted a little bit about Steve Bruce. Spent a fortune on Asamoah Gyan, on Darren Bent. I mean, built a fantastic squad for the time. Don't get us wrong, but he had a lot of good resources as well. Don't forget that. And towards the end under Bruce, it just became pretty toxic, didn't it? I think one of the things, other than the 10th place finish, which was great, one of the things which still, if I just shut my eyes and think about that period, stands out was like going 2 and 3 months without winning a game. That wasn't good enough. And that's why he lost his job. And I know Bruce still to this day claims he was hounded out of Sunderland for being a Geordie, but he wasn't. He wasn't hounded out of Sunderland for being Geordie. He was hounded out of Sunderland for doing a shite job. And I know the interview we published with Michael Turner, which you did a couple of years ago, Chris, which people haven't heard it. That was out on Sunday, I think, so people can catch up on that. But he talks about that time. He actually said he thought it was the wrong decision to sack Bruce at the time. But as a fan in the stadium that night when we got beat off Wigan, it certainly didn't feel like the wrong decision. I think everyone had just had enough of him, had enough of his football, couldn't be arsed anymore with chucking games away with quality players on the pitch. Like, might sound like it now, like I'm maybe blown out of proportion, but for the time, Wes Brown and John O'Shea were big signings. They'd been winning trophies with Manchester United. There was still a decent age, and he signed these players, and it wasn't working. It wasn't gelling. It wasn't meshing right, and he maybe just didn't get his transfer business right in the end. You know, having had a really good first year, signing some cracking players, you look at some of the shite he signed at the back end of his time, and you think, yeah, he probably shot himself in the foot overall.
Yeah. Well, last but not least, Johnny, can we have your countdown from 10 up to 6, please?
So, number 10, Lee Johnson. Number 9, Alex Neil. Number 8, Steve Bruce. Number 7, Tony Mowbray. Number 6, Sam Allardyce.
Right. Well, Johnny, you actually had the same names as Gav, but in a slightly different order. And I'm going to come on to Lee Johnson in a few moments because that will be fun. But you've got Alex Neil second bottom, and it's a bit lower than the other two lads. Got him 6th and 7th. Now, you know, for you, has this got anything to do with the way he left, or do you just not see getting out of League One quite as big as an achievement as staying in the Premier League or reaching the Championship playoffs like what Tony Mowbray did?
It's a bit of both for me. I think you look at the way that he left, and that just isn't acceptable. You know, he was under contract with the club. He was still employed. He's abandoned the team on a match day, a league match, you know, the stuff that he's paid to come and guide us through. And he's in another stadium in another part of the country watching another team that he's about to go and join. So no matter which way you slice it or how you want to look at it, that's just not good enough. It's unprofessional. I hate when players do it as well, like down tools and, you know, refuse to play or whatever. So when a manager does it, it's no better. But having said all that, even if that hadn't happened, I just don't think beating Wycombe Wanderers in a playoff final is that good. Like, it was brilliant at the time and we needed it. And he did I give him credit for getting us into the playoffs and getting us to the playoff final, because he did have to do a tough job. He was picking up the pieces a little bit particularly after the 6-0 at Bolton and, you know, some of the stuff that season under Johnson. But like every single one of us, I think, in London that day on the playoff final against Wycombe, we all knew we were going to win. Not even in like a cocky way. You just knew we were never going to lose. So I can't really look at that and say, wow, that was such an impressive job from Alex Neil to get us past a League One playoffs. And then you add in the way that he left in for me. I can't put somebody who only actually managed us in anger in League One above managers who've done it at higher levels. So yeah, I think thanks for the job, Alex, but you're not cracking out my relegation zone, pal.
Wow, right, okay. Johnny Hawley quote, you know, winning the playoff final just isn't that good.
Whoa. Winning the League One playoff final against Wycombe isn't that good, all right? Don't get a sack before I've even begun.
Did I slightly get the quote wrong there? Sorry, mate. Sorry about that. But one of the other names that you've all got in your bottom 5, Johnny, is Tony Mowbray, and we haven't touched on him too much because you know he's 7th in your list, he's 8th in the other two lads' lists, he is 8th overall in our combined list. Now, for you, how good a job was that steadying the ship and taking us to the playoffs? Because he's got nothing that he actually achieved, didn't take us up, didn't win a title, didn't do anything like that. And then it slightly went off the rails the next season, although I think that the fan base were split on him going. But do you almost think as well that there's an element of how popular Tony Mowbray is and how much we like him as a bloke that you almost couldn't have put him bottom just because of that?
Absolutely. I think he suffers a little bit from Martin O'Neill-itis in the sense that he came in his first season, he was like, we were riding the crest of a wave. He had a massive positive attitude, amongst the players, amongst the fans, that brilliant run to get into the playoffs. And obviously, we fell short in the end and injuries and what have you against Luton, which I don't necessarily blame Mowbray for sort of failing in inverted commas there, but obviously, it didn't end up going the way that we wanted. And then the second season, you wonder, did it maybe drag on a little bit too long in the end? Was there a point a little bit earlier where things could have, we could have maybe parted ways a little bit more amicably? Because I think, unfortunately now as well, a lot of people's last memories of Mowbray as a Sunderland manager were that run of, I think it was 2 wins in 9 at the end before he lost his job, which a little bit like Gav was saying with Steve Bruce as well, obviously nowhere near the same level of bad runs, but when you go on those kind of runs, it isn't good enough, and it does just sap the good feeling around the place if there is any, because nobody wants to watch us turn up and lose and draw every week. So yeah, I think Mowbray, like you say as well, Chris, just didn't actually in the end achieve something tangible to kind of put that seal on his Sunderland CV and say, yes, I came and I did this. In the end, you point at Mowbray and you go, the good football, the goals, the vibrancy, the excitement. But unfortunately, if it doesn't lead anywhere, you can't really be getting into the top 5 of the list. But like you say as well, we all love him. And he was a great bloke, so I'm certainly not putting him below Steve Bruce, no chance.
Yeah. Perfect manager for the time for me. We needed that steady pair of hands. So let's get into the fun part, onto our top 5s. And Andrew, we are very specifically going to start with you. Could we have your countdown from 5 up to your number 1, please?
I don't think I want to do it now, Chris. As soon as I heard the other 2 where they placed Lee Johnson, I thought,
well,
this is
it. Let's go.
This is a stitch up. Right, I'll just get it over with. Number 5, Roy Keane. Number 4 was Mr. Johnson. Number 3.
Whoa.
I've got me reasons. Let
him finish.
Was he giving you a reach around when you were picking these?
Dear me. Do you know what it is? I can feel my voice. My voice is already starting to tremble, lads, isn't it? Hang on, I'm going to have a sip of water here. Oh, sorry, gents. Where were we? Number 4 was Lee Johnson. Can I just say, I've never actually listened. I've never actually listened to this Match of the Day podcast, so I've got an excuse there.
I feel like we need Micah Richards' laugh in the background.
Well, I thought the whole point of these things was to, encourage conversation and create a bit of.
It is. It absolutely is. Don't worry about
that. Right, yes, number 4, Lee Johnson, and I expect there to be no questions on that.
3 times you've said that now. Get your top 3.
I'm convincing myself here, Chris. No, I think we can all agree that that's fine. We're not going to have any further conversation on that. Number 3 was Mick McCarthy. That one seems to have gone down a little bit better with you lot, so that's good.
No comment.
Hey, not another one. Number 2, Reggie Slabris, and number 1, Peter Reid.
Right, Andrew. Elephant in the room time. You've got Lee Johnson 4th in your list. The other 2 lads have got him rock bottom. You've got him above the likes of Roy Keane, who won the championship title and kept us in the Premier League. Alex Neil gained promotion to the championship, won a playoffs. Steve Bruce finished mid-table in the Premier League. So, mate, the floor is yours.
Is this when I claim my internet's gone a bit iffy? I'm going to have to drop out of the call.
You're breaking up there, Andrew. Were you saying something?
In my notes, admittedly, I have said it's a bit of a wild card. I do accept that this is a bit of an outlier. But Lee Johnson has come along when Louis Dreyfus has just taken over, I think. Christian Speakman's just been installed. We were a club who we were expected to be in League One for one season. We thought we were going to be in and out, and then we got stuck there. And under Parkinson, it didn't even look like we were going to get promoted at some point. So Johnson's come along, and he's part of this new era that we're now seeing the benefit of. I know that's quite a big claim to make, but he did get us to a position where Alex Neil could then kick us on to promotion. And the thing that I'll always remember about Lee Johnson is we could not buy a win at Wembley. We were shocking at Wembley. This is a fella who's come along. It's COVID. Everybody's miserable. We've not won at Wembley for, 40-odd years at that point. he's given us a win in a minor competition, admittedly, but we've since gone back to Wembley twice and won in playoffs. Now, if we'd not beaten Tranmere, there's an argument to say that game against Wickham, which Johnny touched on, there's a whole load of pressure around that game. The Wembley hoodoo will be getting mentioned in the media. It becomes a big topic. But Johnson's got us over that like difficult Wembley record, and he's started the turnaround. And if that doesn't convince you, lads, I think this is my trump card. Brian Clough, more than one of the most successful managers ever. His first trophy with Derby County was the Texaco Cup. I think he also won the Watney Cup with them. He's then won the Anglo-Scottish Cup with Nottingham Forest. And he said that they were some of his most important trophies because that is what brought a winning mentality to those teams. I honestly think Lee Johnson has had a part in what we're now enjoying in this current way of doing things at Sunderland. And that is a hill I'm going to die on, lads. I don't care what you throw at us.
I'll say this. I'll say I agree with every word you've said, but that's the reason I put him in the top 10 rather than outside of the top 10. So I agree with every single word of that. I think you're bang on. I think you had a massive part to play in just changing the culture of the football club, getting us playing a certain way, introducing young players into the first team, getting that first Wembley win over the line, laying the foundations for the style of football, which really got us into the Premier League. I agree on all of that, but I still don't think he's placed as highly. But I can't disagree with the word you said. You've put a good argument up.
Well, that'll do me. I think for one thing that goes against him is the language he used. There was a lot of jokes. People took the mick. I wonder if some of the language he used in press conferences, he could have maybe tempered a bit, and people might have then given more credit because some of the things he said made sense. It was just how he said it, and it left him open to a lot of mickey taking.
Yeah,
Bomb Alley and the corridor of uncertainty and all that crap.
Yeah,
of maximum opportunity and
yeah.
What was the one about shark?
Is a shark biting people on a Monday afternoon or whatever he was talking about?
That's something that's followed him everywhere, man. Yeah. It's not just the Sunderland thing. I think it's kind of he's clear. Like I met him when he came to the soup kitchen when he was manager, and he was like a lovely bloke. But I think his head was up his arse sometimes. He turned up in a Canada Goose coat, and the media team were like, you're feeding homeless people. Like you might want to take that off. I just think there was a bit of that with Johnson, wasn't there?
Yeah, and to be fair, right, I think Andrew I think you're right in all the points that you make in the sense that, Johnson, I do think, gets undervalued by a lot of Sunderland fans. And he did do a lot of good work in that season, which does go unnoticed because in the end, it wasn't him who actually took us up. But I just think you can't concede 6 goals to Bolton in the third tier.
I was about to bring that one up.
And being the top 5 of the managers. It's a bit like how I said about Russell Martin going up with Southampton. I was like, you cannot be a Premier League manager and have conceded 5 to that Sunderland team that finished 16th in the Championship. You just can't do it. Like, it's just something fundamental in my brain can't put the two together, and it's a bit like that with Lee Johnson. I just remember Bolton every time I hear his name and sends a little shiver down my spine.
The Bolton game was a shocker, but I remember going to that on the way, driving in the car with my best mate. We were talking about how if we won that day, we would have been top. So that was a weird weekend because I don't think there's ever been a situation where you could be potentially going top, and yet by the end of the day, the decision to get rid of him, it probably was the right decision. I just think that given the fact that we were nowhere near the top of League One at points before that. But yes, I can see your faces. It's going to take more convincing.
To back you up as well, Andrew, he was second in terms of win percentage on the list of managers. So that's another.
Yeah, but it's in the third tier, man. I can manage Sunderland with a decent win percentage in the third tier. So you got pick 11 players.
So there's your next headline. Get Gavin.
So we've now got, what was it? Beating Wickham wasn't any achievement, and Gav could have done the job Lee Johnson did. I don't think it should be me. I think these two have got some questions to answer, Chris.
Well, Andrew, like I said, I expected nothing less of you than given that strong argument that you did. Absolutely brilliant, and you did. But out of all the 10 managers, I didn't expect to spend all that time on Lee Johnson. So we're gonna move on. Go on, Andrew.
I was just going to say, you could ask me this. It's one of those lists. You could ask me this list next week. I'm in a different mood, and now maybe Lee Johnson's a little bit further down the list. But nah, I'll stick with it for the time being. I'm happy.
Absolutely love it. So you should be. Gav, let's have your countdown from 5 up to your top manager, please.
Okie dokie. So 5th place, I have Gus Poyet. In number 4, Mick McCarthy. 3, Roy Keane. 2, Regis Labrise. And at number 1, Peter Reid.
I can see Johnny's face because basically you've just flipped them all the way up to to Peter Reid. And I'm going to go straight in, Gav, and ask about Regis Labrise because I did find this a little bit strange when I got the 3 lists in, because he's in everyone's top 3. And actually, when we come onto the combined list, because with the points-based system that I've done, because I'm sad enough to do that, he has come out second behind Peter Reid. He's head of, he's taken us up through the playoffs, but he's ahead of Roy Keane, who inherited a mess and then went on to actually win the title from being in the bottom 3. He's the head of Mick McCarthy for you, who inherited an absolute club in a mess and had to get some bargains to win the title within 2 seasons and reached an FA Cup semi-final and reached the playoffs in his semi-final when he lost a whole host of players that were there from the Peter Reid era. I mean, could you not argue that they were potentially more impressive than in that Labrise took over a relatively well-run club with a team that had lots of potential?
He did, but he also took over a team that was 16th, floundering when Michael Beale was in charge, and then Mike Dodds took us to the end of the season. And a bit like that Peter Reid season, the first time that Peter Reid won the championship, he effectively took over a team that hadn't had a lot of work done to it. Wasn't a lot of massive difference made between the side the year before and the one that got promoted. For me, the most impressive thing with Regis Labrise is the environment in which you find Sunderland. So when Roy Keane and Mick McCarthy were manager of Sunderland, it was a more level league. I think it was an easier league to get promoted from. When you consider the amount of money which is in the championship now, the teams coming down with parachute payments, it makes it more and more difficult every single year to get promoted. And to do that without spending a great amount of money with the likes of... we beat Sheffield United in the final, who, look at the money they spent. They spent more money on Tom Cannon than we did on our entire squad that took part in that game. So it's more about, for me, it was the financial landscape, because Roy Keane spent a lot of money. He did a brilliant job, but spent a lot of money to put together a team which got us promoted. In January as well, we added a lot of quality. And it was I just think it was a less difficult league to get promoted from. And then on the flip side of that, Mick McCarthy had virtually spent out, but I keep coming back to this thing. I just think it was easier to get promoted then. I think it was a more level playing field. Ooh. Regis Labrise has got Sunderland promoted in a division which has never been harder to get out of. And I think that's why he pips the two of them for me. Plus, on top of that, I've got to factor in the way it ended. We're still in the middle of it with Regis Labrise. We don't know how this story ends with him. It was disappointing how it ended with Roy Keane. It was disappointing how it ended with Mick McCarthy going down with 15 points. I know he missed the tail end of that, but the bulk of the season. So that I've got to factor all of that in. But for me, the chief reason he's second above, particularly Roy Keane and Mick McCarthy, is just the landscape in which he got Sunderland promoted from. I think he's done an amazing job.
Okay, devil's advocate, because I did tell you I was going to be an absolute prick on this podcast. But Mick McCarthy, that second season when he lost the last batch of those top players, you're talking about real bargains. You're talking about Danny Collins for, what was it, 20 grand or something. Neil Collins for 10 grand from Dumbarton. You thought you're raiding the lower leagues for Liam Lawrence for, what was it, 100 grand, Dean Whitehead for 200 grand, Stephen Elliott for nothing from Man City. I mean, when you think about it, he won that title with Jeff Whiteley and Carl Robinson in the middle of his midfield that season. I mean, for that alone, there should be a statue made of the fella.
Yeah, you're not going to find me arguing that he didn't do a brilliant job with what he had. I mean, just looking at the transfer business now, Stephen Elliott on a free, as you mentioned, did a cracking job for us in the Championship. Robinson, I don't think he went into the Premier League with us, did he? But he was virtually never present that season. Dean Whitehead, who went on to play hundreds of games in the Premier League. Liam Lawrence had a good career. Stephen Colwell on a free had a decent career. Some canny loans as well. I remember Darren Carter coming in for a period, had a good spell. And
Stuart Dowling the season before that.
Yeah. Danny Collins, as you mentioned, who's obviously still a part of the club now.
Brian Dean, who was one of my favourite loan signings.
Yeah, Brian Dean didn't score for us, did he? But he did play a part in that run towards the end of the season, playing with Stephen Elliott. So, no, you're not going to get me, and that's why he's in fourth place for me. I think he's ahead of Poyet, Allardyce, Alex Neil, Mowbray, Bruce and Johnson in my list. And it's because I think Mick McCarthy on a whole did an unbelievable job as Sunderland manager to basically take over a club in disarray with an owner who'd stopped spending money, had lost virtually everyone of value bar Julio Arca, and managed to get us out of the division, got us to a cup semi-final. Should have won, mind. Played Millwall, and we should. That's a black mark against his name, in my opinion. We should have been in Europe.
Millwall were a good side at the time.
They were way below us in the table, though, weren't they?
With that, I think Dennis Wise had not long taken over, if I remember, and him and Ray Wilkins were doing a decent. Well, yeah, of course.
When we talk about typical Sunderland, having to beat a team below us in the league to get to Europe,
you can't legislate for Jason McAtee getting sent off. To be fair.
Chris Mark, are you just going to say the opposite to whatever Captain Johnny says?
Absolutely. That's the only reason I'm here, mate.
I'm in all seriousness, Mick McCarthy, for me, did a brilliant job. Not as good as Roy Keane and certainly not as good as Regis Fabrice, but it's tough. I mean, we're talking about some of the best managers we've had in the last 20-odd years. I'll keep coming back to this. I just think if you really sit down and look at the league in which Sunderland have just been promoted from, and you see the resources of the other clubs. Leeds, 100 points, Premier League squad when they came down, have kept adding to it, kept spending money. They were always going to go up. Burnley, the same, came down with parachute payments. We competed with these teams for a long time. Sheffield United, who we beat in the final, finished 14 points ahead of us with an unbelievable budget at this level, and we beat them in the final. Coventry have spent an absolute fortune over the last 2 and 3 years. A lot more than we have. And we beat them in the semi-finals. You look further down the leagues. Borough have spent a fortune. West Brom are not long off the back of parachute payments. Norwich not long off the back of parachute payments. Watford only relegated a couple of seasons ago. Stoke have spent a fortune. Hull have spent a fortune. Luton relegated with parachute payments. I just think it's the toughest league Sunderland have ever been promoted out of the Championship with, in my opinion. I don't think it's ever been more difficult to get out, and we did it. And for that, Regis Fabrice, only behind Peter Reid, because Peter Reid, and we'll probably get onto him in a minute, but only behind Peter Reid because Peter Reid did it twice. Mm-hmm. Peter Reid did it twice and then did such an unbelievable job in the Premier League. It would be very difficult to argue anybody above Peter Reid. But for me, he's in that rung below. Nobody's done a better job.
Well said, mate. Nearly convinced us. Right, Johnny, last but not least, could we have your top 5 starting from 5 up to your top manager, please?
Certainly can. Number 5, Mick McCarthy. Number 4, Gus Poyet. Number 3, Regis Fabrice. Number 2, Roy Keane. I'll not do that accent. And number 1, Peter Reid.
And I've never heard his name being said in a Welsh accent before. It's a bit weird.
Do you know what? I had that. You know that guy who's like, he's going to bring the va-va-voom, the sexy football. I had that guy in my head. I don't know why. So whoever he is, you living rent-free in my skull, mate. Don't worry about it.
All right, okay. I think Johnny's losing it. But we'll see. We'll see if we can get him back on track, because you've got Gus Poyet in his highest position out of the lads. And Gav had him at number 5. Andrew had him at number 7. You had him in at number 4. ahead of the likes of Mick McCarthy and Sam Allardyce, and obviously the rest in that bottom five. But Gus Poyet, because look, you could argue great escape, brilliant, but you could argue it was of his own making. He got us in that position in the first place, so how impressive was that? But then, of course, you've got the cup final. So is it the cup final that drags him up?
Partly, yes. Well, in a big way, yes. Obviously, that was, massive game for the club. I think that at the time it felt a bit like it was us kind of displaying, we belong at the top level, we're good enough to mix it with some of the big lads, even though the league form was indifferent, you could say. Obviously, it didn't turn out to be much of a building block or a stepping stone. We've obviously gone the wrong way in the years afterwards, but that was a good achievement, and we beat some good teams on the way to that cup final as well. Man United in the semis, who I know they weren't the Man United of Ferguson, but they were still a good team. We beat Chelsea as well on the way, didn't we? Some good performances, so that definitely featured highly for me. And some great results against Newcastle, which helped as well. Just boost the feeling around the place. They're brilliant to win the derbies, aren't they? They just make you feel fantastic for a few days afterwards. So they count for him as well. And I thought in that first season, that 13-14 season, I thought we played some really nice stuff under Poyet as well at times. Particularly, we didn't score, but do you remember that move where I think it was Barini hit the woodwork at Old Trafford right near the end of the season? That lovely flowing move where we just sort of passed our way up the pitch and we tore Man United open, really, and we should have scored. That sort of epitomised the way that we tried to play under Poyet. And yeah, all of that stuff added up for me. I wanted to put him higher, I'll be honest. But there was a couple of things counted against him. A little bit like I was slagging Lee Johnson off for. You can't really lose a Premier League game 8-0 and get in the top three, I don't think. And there were some other poor results as well at home. I'm sure we conceded 4 to both Villa and Palace. I just can't remember whether they were both under Poyet. But they were poor games.
Yeah.
That second season, the 14-15 season, I just think his arse dropped out a bit. We had the 8-0, we had some bad results, and he just clammed up and it was really hurt him.
He got weird in the media, didn't he? He kept saying there was something else going on at the club, Johnny.
Yeah, and I think, look, by all accounts from other places that he's kind of worked, I don't know if he's the calmest and easiest character to forge a working relationship with. Put it that way. So I can imagine there would have been a bit of tension behind the scenes, maybe with him and some of whether it was the owner or whether it was other directors at the club or what have you. I'm sure there were things that he wanted that they couldn't give, and I just think Poyet overall as a total package for me, he had us playing good football, got good derby results, he got us to a cup final, he kept us up in spectacular fashion. So all of that for me is why he kind of has to be up there. But like I say, it's just that 8-0, the FA Cup quarter final against Hull. I still can't really forgive him for how weak of a team he played in that game. Yeah. That was a chance to get to Wembley twice in a season, which would have been slightly nicer than the 2019 edition of that feat. But yeah, I just think he hurt himself, I think, in the end. Whereas some of our managers have been either a bit unlucky or just a bit of a bridge too far. I think Poyet was his own worst enemy sometimes, and he kind of hurt his legacy in the eyes of a lot of fans with that second season and the way that it ended. Obviously, it was such a damp squib by the end. There was just no life left in it.
I loved Gus Poyet. I really did, and I still do. And I think he did a brilliant job. Because we were talking just before about Lee Johnson and changing culture and changing playing style. Well, Gus Poyet did that, but he tried to do that quite ambitiously in the Premier League, which is a lot more difficult to do than it is in the third tier, isn't it? And he did that with a squad which had been put together by Paolo Di Canio and Roberto Di Fanti, which was chucked together, He managed to get that team playing some cracking football. And in the second half of the season, when he had the chance to sign some of his own players, or at least have some say in it, he brought in Marcos Alonso, Santiago Virgini, Oscar Astari, Ignacio Scotto, Liam Bridcut. Not all of them successes, but you could see what he was trying to do. He was trying to get us playing a more South American flavoured style of football. And it was lovely to watch at times. And look, when it wasn't going so well, it wasn't great. I'm not going to deny that. But the Great Escape, the cup final run, which will always be in my memory as one of my most favourite times as a Sunderland fan, absolutely battering Newcastle. The best performance I've ever seen from a Sunderland team at St James's Park in my lifetime. You know, I'm not old enough to have seen Gary Rowell score a hat-trick back in the day, obviously, but we didn't just beat them, we absolutely mauled them. And that was playing proper Poyet ball. We played them off the park. And he'll always have a special place in my heart for that. Plus, such a passionate bloke about Sunderland. Even now, he still loves talking about Sunderland. I'm a massive Poyet fan. And that's why he goes above Allardyce, he goes above Neil, who got us promoted, and et cetera, et cetera. I just think he's a great fella and somebody we should always look back fondly at as somebody who gave us some great times.
Yeah. And you mentioned Skocko. I remember thinking he was going to be a world beater when he came in.
It was the YouTube compilation virus, wasn't it? You get sucked in by it. You watch the YouTube video of a play and you go, freaking hell, we've signed Messi.
And I'm sure he come in right before we played the Mags as well. And I think one of his first times in the squad, he was on the bench against them, and I was thinking, oh, come on, lad, get off the bench and get a hat-trick in 5 minutes, if you're anything like your compilations.
Well, I don't know whether he got a fair whack, did he? You know, you look at his record and he scored hundreds of goals across his career, but Sunderland, he just didn't
scored everywhere else, didn't he? Everywhere else.
Yeah, typical Sunderland, there it is again.
Big list of players like that. There's one more person I want to speak to. Andrew, I'm going to come to you because you had Roy Keane behind the likes of Lee Johnson, Mick McCarthy and Regis Labrie, even though he won the title from almost being bottom of the table, kept us in the Premier League. So where did it go wrong for Roy Keane in terms of your top 10, Andrew?
I think where did it go wrong for all of them? Pretty much all of them. I think he was the perfect appointment at that time. Again, he's come into a club that's at rock bottom, and he has come through and he has kind of said, we're not feeling sorry for ourselves. We are going to be proud of our history. We are going to be positive going forward. He was the right character we needed. He didn't just get us promoted either. He got us in the Premier League. Our 2 previous seasons, we went down with pathetic points totals. He's come along. Not only have we survived relegation, we've done it with a couple of games to spare. So he did a good job. I just feel as if he left at the first sign of trouble. There was rumours that some of his players that summer that he bought hadn't quite fitted in and he was struggling to manage them. There was this whole carry-on with Ellis Short where there was this apparently some sort of question mark over his commitment and whether he was it something like he I don't
think he was spending all his time in the north.
Yeah, and I just feel as if had he hung around a bit longer, we could have maybe established something. But he maybe he went a bit too soon for me. That's why he wasn't a little bit higher.
I'll just to weigh in on that. I always think Roy Keane puts Roy Keane's interests before everything else.
Yeah.
And maybe in the case of some of the other couple of managers there, they maybe were more committed all round to Sunderland than maybe he was. But it doesn't take away from the job he did.
I actually think in some ways that he was almost too young for the job because
Possibly.
he was only 37, I think, at the time, 36, 37, just finished playing.
He left in December 2008, so he'll have been 36.
Yeah,
36, I think. Yeah,
I think there's been a couple of times since his departure where he's been linked with us, and I have to say I don't think his character would have fit in with what we're trying to do now.
Interesting, Andrew. Though he was the top target for a while there just before we got Alex Neil. And Speakman was trying to recruit him. Can you imagine them two working together? Because I can't.
No, I can't. I don't think he would fit into what we're trying to do. He was the right man at the right time when he did arrive. But we've touched on Mick McCarthy there. There was a couple of times after Mick McCarthy left where I would have welcomed him back. There's been certain managers who I've thought, nah. Parkinson, for example, I think there was rumour around that time where I would have had McCarthy back. Although at the time I wasn't as big a fan of Mick McCarthy. It's looking back that I've come to realise the job he did. Whereas Keane, he came, he did what he did, he was brilliant. But for me, that was it. Time to move on. Thanks very much. We'll remember you. But no, didn't have that legacy perhaps to have him higher up the top 10.
Yeah. And let's get to the top manager, because in everyone's first place was, and Gav's touched on it, was Peter Reid. I mean, Gav, it sounds like you mentioned earlier there was no doubt for you. We went straight in at number one. And just looking at your top five, or top four, really, the kind of, you've got Peter Reid, Roy Keane and Mick McCarthy, and then Regis Labrie sandwiched in number two. But Peter Reid is, I think, for a long time, probably until Regis Labrie, the stereotypical Sunderland manager, isn't he? That kind of, you want to run through a brick wall. He says a spade's a spade. I mean, that character seemed to just fit. They always seemed to be the successful ones at Sunderland. Yeah,
it's certainly traditionally those have been the managers which have worked for us, and it's easy to see why. An infectious character, somebody still who, if you hear him talk, he holds a room. He was only on BBC Newcastle on Tuesday night as their main guest, talking about his time at the club. And when you hear Peter Reid talk, you listen, don't you? And it was certainly the case when he was manager, and he was a younger man there. It was a different time when maybe the more old school approach worked to recruiting players, to managing players, the man management style, the getting everybody around a bar stool and chatting, and getting the pints flowing and stuff. That was the way he chose to do it, but it worked. You cannot argue with Peter Reid's his methods as a manager. He got so much out of so little. Certainly initially, when I mentioned before about how Regis Labrie got us promoted with virtually the squad he inherited, that's exactly what Peter Reid did. Take a handful of players. He managed to get us out the Championship with a team which nearly got relegated under Mick Buxton, and I say Championship, First Division. I'm getting my eras mixed up. And then in the Premier League, very competitive, relegated with, you may be able to put us right here if I'm wrong, but the highest points total anyone's ever been relegated with. I think that record still stands, doesn't it? We were the first side to go down with 40 points. Yeah. So we made a decent fist of it, and again, didn't spend a lot of money, and the money we did spend, a lot of that was in the treatment room, wasn't it, with Niall Quinn and Tony Courtin. And then we go down. He recruits the likes of Darren Williams from York in that season before, who hadn't cost us a lot of money, became an important part of the team. Jody Craddock cost us next to nought from Cambridge. We still had Michael Bridges in from the youth system. Kevin Phillips, 200 grand, I think, from Watford, went on to be probably the best sign we've ever made. Quinny's Indian Summer, was probably finished. A lot of managers would have chucked them on the scrap heap and got the most out of him with Kevin Phillips. Yeah, he was. I think Quinny was in Malaysia, ready to go across there. I think, and then then ended up signing for us. Just a ridiculous job, really, to get us back facing in the right direction. And again, that culture he created sourced to 2 7th place finishes in the end after winning the league. I mean, people still talk about it as the best football my dad does. Anyways, my dad still maintains that is the best football Sunderland have ever played, never will play. When we had Summerby Johnson, Mickey Gray bombing down one side, Quinny knocking it down for Kevin Phillips, and Clark in the middle with Alex Ray. Best football you'll ever see at Sunderland, according to my dad. And obviously I was a young, and as I grew up, that was the best football I've probably ever seen too. Or certainly it's right up there with some of the stuff we played under Mowbray and at times under Labrie. So Peter Reid done an unbelievable job. You can't really argue with his record. It's still the best we've ever performed in the Premier League, not the top flight, but the Premier League, finishing 7th twice, and possibly could have done a little bit better in the cup competitions. When you think we got to a semi-final of the League Cup against Leicester when we were in the First Division, maybe you could argue that we should have done better when we were in the Premier League too. But there was a time there where Sunderland were absolutely flying. It's probably, other than right now, it's the best it's felt, certainly in the last 20, 30 years, to be a Sunderland supporter. And he'll always go down, won't he, as a Sunderland legend, Peter Reid. He's he's the man. He's still, when you saw him on the screen at Wembley in his white suit with these shades on, you're like, still a fucking boy, isn't he? I love him.
Yeah. And Andrew, I mean, from a historical context, he's probably, I can't imagine another manager lasting as long as he did with the way football is, because he took charge of almost double I think over double the amount of the next person, who's Mick McCarthy, in terms of how many games he led the club for. But, we have to go back to, when we talk on this week, we have to go back to the 1890s and 30s when we won things at the very top level. So where does Peter Reid, do you think, sit in, the full history of the club?
Oh, I mean, certainly Second World War, I think he's probably one of the best. And in terms of overall history, I think he is up there. We're talking about this century of managers, aren't we? Reid's actually spanned the late 90s, going into the 2000s. He's spanned the Roker Park to the Stadium of Light era, which, by the way, the Stadium of Light, there was a lot of people thinking it was going to be a white elephant. Had Peter Reid not...
It impacted his budget as well, didn't it, for a while?
It did, yeah, it did. Had he not been able to produce that type of football and be getting those types of results, the Stadium of Light might have been seen in a completely different context. But yes, I think he is up there. He delivered our two highest finishes since the 50s, I think it was. Won promotion with us, broken records left, right and centre. As Gav says, some of the football that team produced was unreal. So I think you can justifiably put him up amongst the very best of all Sunderland history.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny, of course, he's your number one as well. And I know we were kidding at the start, but I genuinely don't know when you started going to see Sunderland. I don't know whether it was during Peter Reid or after Peter Reid. But if it was, I mean, like I said, even with kind of young'uns who might not necessarily have been there when Peter Reid was in charge, he's almost still looked at this kind of mythical figure who was able to kind of break that Premier League barrier, get us in there for a couple of seasons as a fairly successful side, even though it didn't work out as we all would have liked. But he's still got that reputation at the club, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I think, look, I'll be honest, right? Peter Reid's reign was just slightly before my time, really. But I
hate young'uns, me, honestly.
Well, just for that, I'm putting him 10th. So fuck you. No, but seriously, I mean, even though he was just before my time, I think you can't grow up as a Sunderland fan anywhere near that period of time without having it kind of drummed into your skull from an early age, like how good that team was. And obviously, again, I wasn't watching, every game, and I wasn't, living the highs and the lows as they happened the same way that, I'm sure you lads were. But you watch the clips, you look at the players, the lads have rattled some of them off already, but I mean, you're thinking about Quinn and Phillips and Summerby and Ball and, all these Sorensen, some of these absolute heroes of the club who were playing sort of around that time. And you can't escape knowing what effect that had on people. I mean, the fact that people, would still sing the Cheer Up Peter Reid song and that, like, that shows a level of feeling that not too many players and managers actually get to experience from our fan base, really. Because as much as we sing songs for Dennis Sirkin and we sing songs for, we sang a song for Jack Clark and players like this who, in the moment, we love them. That sort of lasting adoration is something that's really, really rare, I think, in a lot of fan bases, because it takes the right kind of characters and it takes the right kind of application and commitment and quality at the end of the day to get that, to reach that status. And I think Peter Reid undoubtedly did. And you just look at his achievements in the cold light of day. I mean, it was 2 7th place finishes, wasn't it, in the top division? If somebody got us that now, we'd probably have 2 seasons in Europe. So maybe we just cashed in our 7th place.
They'd have a statue. That's what they'd have.
wait, exactly. I mean, let's say Labrise over the next couple of seasons got us 7th and 7th at some point, we'd be calling for him to be the manager of France or something. He would be saying he's that good. Like, So for Peter Reid to have done it, yes, obviously Premier League was a very different place 25 years ago, or give or take a couple of years. So it's not exactly.
All right, Johnny. All right, it wasn't that long ago.
Hey, Gav said it was easy to get out the Championship 20 years ago, so at least I wasn't calling it easy, okay? I only call League One playoff finals easy. But yeah, look, Reid achieved a massive amount, so for me, he's a number one, and it's not that close.
Johnny, I'm glad. Go on, Gav.
No, you first, mate.
I was going to say, Johnny, I'm glad you've pulled Gav up on that point. Going back to earlier on, I'm sure he said he could have, what was it? Easy to manage in League One.
Yeah.
He's now said the Championship's easy. I mean, Mick McCarthy got our second highest points total ever with 94 points. But for Roker Report's very own Pep Guardiola here, not good enough.
Hey,
you know,
I managed Bolton Colts for 5 years, from under 7s to under 11s. I know what I'm talking about.
I didn't realise I was sorry. I take it all back.
Yeah, and I've just won back-to-back Premier Leagues with Sunderland on Football Manager, but that doesn't mean that I should be in the dugout.
I'm telling you now, I would win that league with that squad. Nah. What I was going to say was, when you look at the final league table of the two seasons when we finished 7th, we finished 7th behind Chelsea, Ipswich, and Leeds, who got into Europe. Ipswich that season had come up, and I think it was George Burley was manager, wasn't he? And they just had a proper freak season. In fact, Ipswich lost 3 games at home all season. So Ipswich had a cracking season, but we finished a handful of points off Europe. You know, Chelsea finished in 6th, 4 points ahead of us. And then in the season before, when we finished 7th, we were 7 points behind Chelsea, who in that year only, I think Leicester got in because of winning a cup, didn't they? If I remember rightly,
beat Spurs, didn't they, in the final?
Yeah. So Leicester finished below Sunderland, but finished got a place in Europe. So that's how close we were to just making that little step up.
Or was it Middlesbrough? Anyway, I can't remember. But yeah, I think it was the season. Yeah, I can't remember now.
Yeah, but we were literally, a midgie's dick away from being in a European competition. That's how close we were. And Peter Reid took us all that way with, like I said before, with players who'd played down the leagues for us. You know, we had the likes, and even not just down the leagues, but some of those lads had been cast-offs from other clubs. I know Nicky Summerby didn't have a massive part to play in the years following, but Nicky Summerby we swapped him for Craig Russell, didn't we, with Man City? It wasn't like he was a superstar who we'd signed, and Peter Reid found the best way to get the best out of him. He was actually up there with David Beckham in terms of crossing ability. I've not seen still to this day, I don't think I've seen a better crosser of the ball in the Sunderland shirt. The only one who's come anywhere near close, in my opinion, is possibly Trey Hume. And I genuinely mean that. I think Trey Hume's crossing ability is right up there. If you had a striker like a Niall Quinn in the box these days, I think Trey Hume would have an absolute field day. But other than him, Nicky Summerby is the man. Stefan Schwartz was actually in the twilight of his career, really, and really got the best out of him. Chris Macon, wasn't a fashionable player, was he? He was, he didn't have a great time at Marseille when he went there, and they kind of just sold him to us on the cheap, and he got the absolute most out of him.
Alan Johnson.
Go right through that squad. Yeah, Alan Johnson, another one, not a particularly fashionable player.
Gavin McCann will go for peanuts from Everton.
Yeah, Paul Butler, did he come from Bury?
Yeah.
If I remember rightly, absolute colossus at the back for us. Kevin Kilban was a bit part player at Everton, and I know he wasn't particularly liked at the time, but I think history's probably been a little bit kinder to Kilban than it was at the time. I think he was still a good player. People didn't like him because he wasn't Alan Johnson, really. That was the top and bottom of it. Had a good Premier League career. Alex Ray had his problems off the pitch. I know we paid a lot of money for him for the time, but Alex Ray wasn't exactly a superstar, and again played a huge role in that team, which did so well. Gavin McCann, who you mentioned before, was from Everton, wasn't he? Gavin McCann, if I remember rightly.
Yep.
Again, then got England caps, or 8 England caps. Sorry, Sven picked him in his first squad.
In Sven's free-for-all, anybody with an British passport, I think, was...
Yeah, and I mentioned before, Darren Williams, someone who we paid next and out for. Eric Ra, who was, I think, 31 at the time. A strange signing, really. Nobody really seen anything of him before, but came in and did a job when he was needed. And Steve Bold, who we talked about the other week, Chris, 20 games, but still, this day, people still go, Steve Bold's the best centre-half we've ever seen. You know?
He is for me.
I mean, absolutely. I know it's another one, Darren Holloway, who came through the system, played a lot of football, considering, you know, after Sunderland didn't do a great deal, I think he had injuries and things like that. Bally still played a part in that first season after coming up. John Oster, another one we got in from, was it Everton or Grimsby? I can't remember.
No.
Thirlwell came through the system. Michael Reddy, we got from Ireland, came through the system. I mean, it wasn't like he'd gone out and spent a fortune to get that team to 7th in the Premier League. Yeah. You know, I know we can sit back now and look at some of the business at the back end of Peter Reid's time, and you go, how the hell did we end up with some of that shite? And I mean, I'm not here to make any assumptions, and I'm certainly not going to, but you can kind of look at some of the names and where they came from and think, bloody hell, like, you know, what was going on there at the time? So it wasn't all great business, but when you look at some of the, I mean, Quinn and Phillips are going to go down as the greatest strike partnership of the modern era. And they signed for what, a combined 1.5, 1.6 million, if that. Like, and I know that it was a lot of years ago, but still, 5 years previously, Newcastle was spending 15 million on Shearer. So there was big money still to go around for quality players, and we got the absolute most out of what we had. So that you'll never find a Sunderland fan who'll talk down Peter Reid, I don't think, because even now, 20 odd years on, his record stands up. It was an unbelievable time to be a Sunderland fan. We were competitive. It was like, I think it was you or Martin the other week said this, Chris, but you just turned up the games, didn't you? And you were like, we're going to win today. You knew we were going to win. That's how good it was.
It was by how much, not by
exactly. You know, some of the. I mean, that first season in the Premier League, considering was Ian Murta, wasn't it? The other week said, you know, there was a feeling that like this team would go on and do well. This team would make the step up.
Yep.
You look at even we had that really bad opening day defeat to Chelsea, but then we beat teams like comfortably. You know, we beat Watford comfortably. We went to Newcastle in the rain and beat them 2-1. We beat Leicester 2-0. We battered Derby 5-0, which really announced us, I thought, in the top flight. We Super Kev had an absolute field day that day, didn't he? He went away to Bradford and battered them 4-0. It was just a continuation of what we'd seen the year before. And he built that. That was Peter Reid's foundations. That was his team with Bobby Saxon, with Adrian Heath and Ricky Sabrazier and all these fantastic coaches that we had at the club at the time. They all played their part, but Reid was the man, like at the forefront.
Just from that, what you said there, Gav, about all those victories, you talked about when we got promoted, we lost Michael Bridges, we lost Lee Clark, we lost Alan Johnson, and he also let Andy Melville go, who played 52 games in all competitions in that promotion season. Now, in this day and age, if you lost almost four kind of, you know, ever-present almost, and before in that summer before you went up, if we lose 4 ever-presents from last season's, or, you know, players who played over 40 games from last season, I mean, there'll be a meltdown on social media. Yeah, and then we got smashed in the first game, and you think, oh, well, it's all over. And then he goes on to finish 7th. And talking about the, getting the most out of players, that famous Chelsea game where we absolutely smashed Chelsea at home, in the reverse fixture from that opening game, he had Paul Thirlwell and Eric Roa in the centre of the park.
It's easy for you to say.
I know I made a mess of it, but you know who I meant. The French lad. We had the French lad in the middle. But yeah, and I mean, talking about getting the most out of players, and we absolutely battered Chelsea at home.
Yeah, and well, even like some of the players who I haven't mentioned, and Thomas Sorensen will go down as another fantastic bit of business that Peter Reid did, but he came in from, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name of this team, but it's abbreviated as OB.
It was Odense. Fine by me. Odense, wasn't it?
Odense, yeah, that's it. Yeah. But he came in and again, didn't, what was it, £500,000 something like that?
Yeah, and he was only 21.
Yeah. I mean, an unbelievable signing. That Chelsea game we're talking about, Sorensen in goal, cost next to out. Macon, cost next to out. Mickey Gray came through the system. Paul Thirlwell came through the system. Geordie Craddock, pennies from Cambridge. Darren Williams, pennies from York. Summerby, swap deal for Craig Russell. Eric Raw, free transfer. Niall Quinn, £1 million, again, was written off as finished. Kevin Phillips, 200 grand. Stefan Schwartz, free transfer, or was it £1 million quid?
He was our record. He was about 3.75. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So there you go. The big outlier there was Schwartz. But I've just run through that. Forgotten men, written off players, lads from the academy. I mean, we talk about Moneyball. That's Moneyball. That's going out and putting a squad together which just greater than the sum of its parts. It unbelievably so. You know, like I say, Summerby for me will go down as one of the most underrated bits of business that we did in that era, because he, like I say, he wasn't fan. He was playing for Man City. He wasn't particularly fancied there at the time. We did a deal where, did we get like £1 million in Summerby for Craig Russell? It was something like that, wasn't it?
It was the other way. I think we paid $1 million, I think, and
someone
got Summerby
on that. I can't remember now, but
I can't remember which one.
Anyways, and then Craig Russell went to Man City and they played him left back, didn't they? And I think his career kind of just sort of
left wing back, because they had about 60 players in their squad at the time. Yeah,
and even the bench that day, Andy Marriott, don't think he ever played for us. Welsh keeper, wasn't he? If I remember rightly,
played in the cup.
Yeah, I've got his autograph somewhere. That's how I remember him. Darren Holloway off the bench, as I mentioned before, someone who came from the system. John Oster was just a young kid that we signed for like £1 million from Everton or Grimsby. I can't remember where it was now. Tommy Butler came over from Ireland. Michael Reddy came over from Ireland. And then you look at them, the Chelsea team. Ed De Hoy, Dutch international. Celestine Babiaro, Nigerian international. Was he Danish international?
Didn't they bring Desai off at half time in that game? Or?
Desai, yeah, because Quinny tortured him.
Yeah. French
World Cup winner. Gustavo Poyet. We don't have to say much more about him. We know all about Poyet. That season scored twice against us. Torrey Andre Flo, less said about him, the better in a Sunderland shirt, but at the time was still a top player. Gianfranco Zola, one of the best to ever do it. Dennis Wise, one of the greatest leaders of his generation. I mean, this wasn't a team of mugs, and we tore them to strips, absolutely battered them. And I think there's a reason that game is often cited, isn't it? Because I think when we think about that Peter Reid team and we think about that era, that's the game that stands, that and the Mags game in the rain, I think. But this more than any, because we absolutely destroyed them. We absolutely battered them. And it was almost the personification of Peter Reid's Sunderland team. It was unbelievable. And yeah, I think, even now when I watch the highlights of that game back and I see Kevin Phillips and Niall Quinn score, I mean, that Phillips volley, still one of the best goals I've ever seen. But Quinny scored good goals in that game that get kind of shoved to the side a little bit, don't they? Because just how good that Phillips strike was. I mean, I'm focusing a lot on this game, but it's really because when you think of the Reid era, that was the best sort of example of his team, I think.
Yeah, no, that is a representative of Reid's side. But after that love letter to Peter Reid that Gav's just gone through, I think that leaves us to go through our top 10 when I take all of the three averages into account. So we've got Peter Reid at number 1. We've got Regis Labrie at number 2. We've got Roy Keane number 3. I got Mick McCarthy number 4. Gus Poyet number 5. Sam Allardyce number 6. Alex Neil number 7. Tony Mowbray number 8. Lee Johnson number 9. And Steve Bruce number 10. So that is our top 10 in order. So we will wait with bated breath for the reaction online and social media to react to all of that. Go on, Andrew.
I was going to say, you mean all the people agreeing with me, saying, Andrew's got that spot on. Yeah.
Well, they'll listen to your arguments and they'll say, yeah, actually, no, I'm having a bit of that. I'm going to lift them off the bottom where Gavin Johnny. How dare they put him bottom? Because Andrew's got a good argument there. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But thank you very much, gentlemen. Really appreciate your time and obviously putting your head on the blocks. Because there will be a reaction and we'll wait and see.
Yeah, well, if you disagree with me, then you can go F yourself because I'm right and you're wrong. All right.
Chris, I don't like this. You seem to be wrapping up. We haven't had your top 10 yet. Come on, yeah, fair's fair.
Okay, so
stop looking at ours as well.
My top 10 consists of 10 names, and I hope that's all the information you require. Okay, well, just to because I've got.
I was only joking, Chris. It's
no, go on. I'll
sweating
stick
now, isn't he?
I know.
Right.
Stuttering
That's so funny now, is it?
I'll stick
Not
my
so easy. Not so easy to do 7 names in a row, is it?
I stuck numbers against it because just in case someone asked the question. I've got Peter Reid at number 1. I've actually got Mick McCarthy at number 2 because I've always I just thought the job he did under the circumstances. Roy Keane at number 3. I've got Regis Labrie as number 4. I've got Sam Allardyce as number 5. Gus Poyet as number 6. Alex Neil at number 7. Tony Mowbray at 8. Steve Bruce at 9. Lee Johnson at 10. Apologies, Andrew. But he was rock bottom. But like I said, he did. I don't think I had too many kind of huge outliers from you lot. Maybe Mick McCarthy. I had Mick McCarthy quite a bit higher than you lot. Although Andrew had him at 3, I had him at 2. But yeah, not wildly different. I didn't have any wild cards in there, Andrew. So sorry about that.
No. It's a reasonable top 10.
Here's one before we wrap up. Then very, very quickly. Is anybody prepared to say there's someone on the list of outliers that should have been in there that you didn't? Because me and Chris were the ones who put that list together. So I'm looking at you two, Andrew and Johnny. Is there anybody from Howard Wilkinson, Niall Quinn, Ricky Sabrasia, Martin O'Neill, Paolo Di Canio, Dick Advocat, David Moyes, Simon Grayson, Chris Coleman, Jack Ross, Phil Parkinson, Michael Beale that you think should have been in there?
David Moyes, number 1.
Yeah.
He was the most optimistic out of the lot, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, he was the biggest football genius because he sussed us out 2 games in and started telling the press exactly where we were going to finish.
Yeah.
So, he knew football. Nah, but seriously, I do think O'Neill's possibly hard done to not get in over, some League One and Championship managers.
Yeah, because I didn't get to have me say on that one at the start, but I left him out just because I loved him, but yeah, disappointing from Martin O'Neill. I know we're going back over old ground here, Chris. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but yeah, maybe Martin O'Neill could see himself as being unlucky as not being in there. And we're a big fan of Martin O'Neill. We got to chat to him once. I don't want to be nasty to him, but
I'd say with Martin O'Neill, it's because you love the fella and you wanted him to do so well.
It.
Yeah,
and it was so disappointing because when he got appointed manager, I thought we've cracked it. I thought we've got that top class manager we've wanted throughout that whole period. And we were desperate for years, and Quinny tried to get him to come in, and it didn't happen. And a couple of times he was linked before that, and that was the time when you thought it was his time. And then that first game against Blackburn, where he jumped about 10 feet in the air when Larson scored that free kick, and you thought, this is it, we've cracked it. Like Martin O'Neill's going to get us into that top 6, and we're going to be playing in Europe. And you thought we were on a bit of a journey with him. And I mean, if anyone wants to go back and listen to the podcast, it'll be out there somewhere, because he basically just said if he'd known what he'd known about the club, he would have never have took it, and he was always fighting a losing battle, and that was the case with a few managers during that time, I think.
Yeah. Hard done to, but I certainly think we've nailed the sort of top order there.
And I did mention it. I do genuinely think that in years to come, people will look back at Jack Ross in not kind of glowing terms, but I do think they'll give him a fair crack, because look, if you think the big signing was almost Glenn Louvens, and look, and he realised that his legs were gone after 2 minutes, and I think he turned up the first training session with like 12 players or something like that, and he had Lee Cattermole whose legs were gone. I mean, midfielders in League One were striding past him in the middle of the park, and that was his best player almost.
Cattermole scored a few goals that season as well, actually. Maybe Jack Ross deserves credit for turning Cattermole into a deadly number 10.
That season, players were just striding past him. He couldn't
scored goals
run.
On that team, man.
Hey.
Fucking Ballon d'Or winner Gavin Henderson back in again to tell us all how it's done.
It says something that bloody Lee Cattermole scored 7 or 8 goals, let's be honest.
Right. Well,
shite. I don't want to talk too much more about that fucking era ever again, if I'm honest.
Before Gav claims he invented the exclamation mark and and Johnny says the Reid era was in black and white, I think we'll best call it a day. Thanks very much, gents. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks again for everyone for listening. If you've been playing along, let us know what your top 10 is. As I said, there's no right or wrong answer, although I will be telling the lads that we're right or wrong later on. We'll have loads on the Roker Report website and daily releases on How We're the Podcast. Gav, we've got loads coming up.
Yes, as always, mate. We've got plenty to digest. We're keeping people interested over the summer. Like I mentioned before, you mentioned before, my pod I did with Councillor Kevin Johnson seems to have gone down very, very well on the socials and stuff. So people need to catch up with that. But there's loads coming as well. Yeah, we've got a fine plan in place for the summer.
Yeah, talked about one of these as well. We've also got a starting 11 combination side from all the promotion teams that we went through with Ian Murter, which was all good fun. And I'm sure people are going to be disagreeing with some of the picks we made on that one as well. But like Gav said, we've got loads on How We're the Podcasting. Check out the Roker Report website as well. It'll all be on there. But from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.